He was just 14 when he took his first hit. What started as curiosity spiraled into a nightmare of addiction, crime, and hopelessness. Everyone had given up on him. Even he had. But in the darkest cell of his life, he heard a whisper, "You are still mine." What happened next would shock everyone who knew him. This is the story of how God turned a broken addict into a bold apostle. If you want to hear more powerful stories of God's love and transformation, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and join our family of faith. He was only 10 when the yelling became louder than the laughter. Home used to feel safe, but now it echoed with slammed doors and shattered trust. His father, once a hard-working man, began drinking more than talking. His mother tried to hold the pieces together, but her eyes grew tired, and her silence louder. So, he stopped coming home after school. The streets felt easier than the chaos inside four walls. By 12, he was already tagging walls with older kids who knew the corners well. They smoked, cursed, laughed like they owned the world. And for a lonely boy aching to belong, that felt like family. The first cigarette, the first drink, the first lie, each one a small step away from the boy he used to be. When he tasted weed for the first time, he didn't cough. He smiled, because for once the pain dulled, and he wanted that numbness to last. School didn't matter anymore. Grades dropped, fights started. He was suspended twice before his 13th birthday. His mother pleaded, begged him to stop, but the sound of her voice felt like static. He had friends now, friends who said, "We got you." But they didn't have him when the cops slammed him against a wall. They didn't show up when he spent a night in juvenile detention, shaking and alone. Each arrest hardened him. Each broken promise from home made him colder. He started skipping court dates, dodging family calls. He didn't realize it then, but the path he was on had one destination, and it wasn't freedom. It was a slow fall, and he was already in free fall, with no one left to catch him. It was winter when the streets became his bed. The cold crept into his bones like regret. He had no jacket, no family, no one left who would answer his calls. Every bridge had been burned, some slow with lies, others in fiery explosions of rage and theft. He stole to survive. He sold whatever he could get his hands on, drugs, fake stories, even his last ounce of dignity. Crack numbed the hunger. Heroin silenced the noise. But it also stole his soul, piece by piece. He was 21 and looked 40, skin pale, eyes dead. One night, behind a dumpster, shivering and sick, he thought about just not waking up. Maybe that would be easier. Maybe no one would even notice. That same night, cops swarmed the alley. Someone tipped them off. No more running. He was too weak to fight, too tired to care. Handcuffed, head down, he was thrown into a cell that felt colder than the streets. There, with nothing but a thin mat and a thicker sense of failure, he sat in silence. Days passed. He wouldn't eat, wouldn't speak. He wanted it to end. He planned how it might. But before he could follow through, something broke inside him. A whisper, a memory, maybe just desperation. Through clenched teeth and burning eyes, he cried out, "God, if you're real, do something." He didn't expect an answer. He didn't even believe one would come. But for the first time in years, his cry wasn't for a fix. It was for hope. And somehow, that changed everything. The Bible showed up on the third morning, tattered, spine cracked, pages worn thin like someone had wept over them for years. He didn't see who left it. No footsteps, no words. Just there, sitting on his metal bunk like it belonged more than he did. He stared at it for hours, unmoved. He hadn't touched a Bible in years. The last time he heard scripture, it was being read over his grandmother's coffin. After that, God became a ghost. Silent, absent, useless. But on the fourth night, hunger gnawed at his belly, and silence screamed in his ears. Boredom, or maybe something deeper, made him reach for it. It felt heavier than he expected. like it was full of more than just paper. He flipped through without thinking, landing in the book of Psalms. His eyes fell on one verse. "The Lord is close to the broken-hearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit." He read it again, and again, and then the tears came. Not soft, quiet tears, but the kind that shake your whole body, like years of pain finally ripping free. He dropped to the floor, hands trembling, breath broken. "God," he whispered, "I don't know if you even want someone like me, but I'm done running." That night he didn't sleep. He wept. He prayed. He surrendered. He asked God to take the ashes of his life and somehow make something out of it. He didn't know what would come next. But in that moment, for the first time in years, he felt something he couldn't explain. A warmth. A presence. Not judgment. Not wrath. Just love. And that was the beginning. Rehab wasn't a miracle. It was war. Every day was a battle between who he used to be and who he was trying to become. The withdrawal nearly broke him. Shaking hands, cold sweats, nightmares that dragged him back into the streets he'd barely escaped. There were nights he screamed into his pillow, wanting to run, wanting just one more hit to make the pain stop. But he stayed. Barely. Prayer became his oxygen, sometimes a whisper, sometimes a desperate cry. And still, somehow, he stayed. His first relapse came 2 months in. One bad phone call, one weak moment, and he found himself in the back alley of an old haunt, the needle in his hand before he could even think. But the high didn't feel like it used to. It felt hollow, dirty. When he stumbled back to the center, ashamed and broken, he expected rejection. But instead, he found a man waiting, his counselor, a former addict who looked him dead in the eyes and said, "You fell. Now get back up. God's not finished." He joined a local church after graduation. He didn't know what to expect, but the moment he walked in, something felt different, real, alive. The pastor welcomed him like a brother. A man named Marcus took him under his wing, teaching him how to read the word, how to pray with fire, how to live like someone truly set free. Every testimony he heard became a spark, and soon he was telling his own. At first, it was just in small groups, then at recovery meetings, then at youth nights. People listened. They cried. Some came forward to give their own lives to Christ. He couldn't believe it. The same voice that used to lie, steal, manipulate, God was using it to bring healing. The road was long. It still is. But with every step, he's not walking alone anymore. The streets hadn't changed much. Same cracked sidewalks, same graffiti-tagged walls, same hungry eyes watching from corners. But he had. Years had passed since he'd walked them high, angry, and full of hate. Now, he walked them steady, clear-eyed, Bible tucked under one arm and purpose burning in his chest. People who once crossed the street to avoid him now stopped to listen. Some didn't recognize him at all. Others stared, mouths open, as if trying to believe that the ghost of the man they knew could really be standing there, alive, whole, and preaching Jesus. He started small, visiting the same prison where he had once been locked up. Only this time, the guard handed him a microphone, not handcuffs. Inmates leaned in, stunned silent as he shared the same pain they knew all too well. No sugarcoating, no fake smiles, just raw truth and the love of a God who met him at rock bottom. In that chapel, some wept, some laughed in disbelief. But something always shifted. Schools invited him, churches welcomed him, addicts called him in the middle of the night, and he answered, because he remembered what it felt like to think no one would. He sat with them, prayed with them, walked with them through their storms. He never forgot what he came from. The smell of the alley, the sting of the needle, the shame that clung like smoke. But now, that mess was his message. God had taken his wreckage and written redemption across every piece. The enemy had tried to end him, but God had other plans. Now, every step he takes is a declaration. What you meant for evil, my God is using for good.